Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and every last one of you jabronis. It's Mitch here, live with your NFL Week 8 live reactions, thoughts, analysis, and my opinion on what went down during Sunday's Week 8, October the 26th, 2025. We're going to break down everything I saw, the main headlines and takeaways from Sunday's action. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button. And if you haven't subscribed and you're tuning into the first time, it's Mitch. Don't be a jabroni. Subscribe to the channel, bro. And get in the comments, whether you're live or here after the fact. Let me know in the comment section below what your main takeaway was from Week 8, this Sunday's action. The Denver Broncos and the Dallas Cowboys are the only game remaining. Denver is kicking Dallas's booty. We will get to that game a little bit later. But where I want to begin instead of end today is with my New England Patriots. I did not make them the headline or the title, although Durkant suggested, you know what, you should probably make Drake Maye the title of the video, because Drake Maye faced the elite, vaunted Cleveland defense, and the Patriots put up 32 points at home, defeating Cleveland 32-13, firmly securing Drake Maye as a real, legitimate MVP player. This puts Drake Maye firmly in the discussion for the Most Valuable Player award. So I want to begin with that game, which I streamed earlier today, and we'll get through all the headlines, guys. So, spike the like button. Let's begin with Drake Maye. So he was 18 for 24, 282, 3 touchdowns, all in the third quarter. He did throw an interception, but he had a 135.8 passer rating. And he also rushed for 50 yards, which was 7.1 yards per carry on the day. Drake once again delivering downfield. Kayshon Boutte striking to Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper, Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas on the move. Everybody's getting involved. Mac Hollins had 7 catches for 89 yards. Boutte had a 39-yard touchdown. Douglas had a 44-yard catch. Hooper had a 31-yard catch. Diggs scored a touchdown today. Hunter Henry scored a touchdown today. Everyone was getting gifts from Drake Maye. And again, another highly efficient and consistent day from the quarterback, number 10. Only 6 incompletions, 18 for 24, and 11.8 yards per attempt, and 3 touchdowns. If there was anything you could say about Drake Maye that was negative, he threw a bad interception where he didn't see Carson Swessinger, who was spying him on the play. He was trying to find Stephon Diggs under pressure from Myles Garrett, which was happening throughout the game. And he threw a pick straight to him. Other than that, this is a guy that was able to withstand one of the best pass rushes in the NFL. Myles Garrett had an incredible game. 5 sacks on Drake Maye. But that didn't matter. How often do you see a guy have 5 sacks and Drake Maye, the quarterback, take 6 sacks and still play this well? That just speaks to, what does this guy have to prove at this point? He's running for 7 yards a carry in this game against a fast linebacking core and a vicious front 4. He's throwing the ball deep better than anyone in football. He's consistently accurate over the middle and underneath. And he's still withstanding and playing through consistent pressure and taking 6 sacks. Most other quarterbacks that are getting pressured this often are not playing this well in a game, especially against this defense, right? And I discussed it throughout the game. Cleveland had not allowed, I could look up the stats, whether it be at home or on the road. Cleveland had been very impressive. Despite only 9 points in the first half for the Patriots, they had 200 total yards of offense in the first half. And it's guys, that's the most amount of yards that anyone had in a first half pretty much all year against this team, right? And they were the number 1 defense in yards allowed, They were the number 1 defense in rushing yards per attempt allowed, number 1 defense in yards per drive allowed, number 5 in points per drive allowed, number 3 in plays per drive allowed, number 1 in first downs allowed, all the way across the board. Pretty damn good defense. And as I stated a few different times, right? Cleveland's defense allowed 141 total yards to Joe Burrow and the Bengals, 242 total yards to the Ravens and Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, 230 yards to the Green Bay Packers and a top 10 offense of Jordan Love and the Packers, 277 yards to Jared Goff's Lions, 349 yards was the one outing against the Vikings where they allowed a lot of yards there, but they only allowed 21 points against the Vikings. And then 335 yards to the Steelers where they allowed 23 points and 219 yards to the Dolphins last week. So, when you're looking at the Browns, like today, what did the Patriots do? Well, they scored 32 points of offensive points, right? Or 2 points were from the defense by a safety. They had 23 first downs, which was more than any team that, this year against Cleveland. They had 422 yards, which was nearly 100 more yards than any other opponent. Drake Maye, had 3 passing touchdowns, which typically doesn't happen against this team. So you look at what the offense did as a whole, and you look at what this quarterback was able to do as a whole, and it's very, very impressive. Because that was the question entering this game was like, sure, New England's been able to beat the Titans. They should beat the Titans, right? Even in Tennessee. They beat the Panthers convincingly at home, but we're not sure how good the Panthers are. Sure, they were 4-3. They're 4-3, 4-4 now. They're average. But, still, they blew them out, whatever. Okay? They beat Buffalo in Buffalo. Very impressive, huge win. Nobody's taking that away from them. Buffalo looked great today. We'll talk about that. And that's an elite quarterback, but Buffalo has questions about their defense. So, okay, Drake Maye, you got to step up against a good defense. So today it was like, can they do it against a good defense? Can they do it against an elite defense? And they did it. And they did it convincingly. It may have taken, a little bit longer, but they got it done, right? This team does start a little slow, but they got it done. Travion Henderson, he did fumble in the fourth quarter, but I thought he had a really strong game running the ball. He had 75 yards on 10 carries, which is 7.5 yards per carry. I thought the run game actually looked decent in this game in comparison to a lot of other games. And that's the other thing with Drake Maye. They've been doing this with a lack of balance, right? Like, they haven't really been able to run the ball all year, pretty much. These last couple of weeks, the Patriots offense running the ball has been a bit better. And then, of course, the defense for the Patriots did what we expected them to do. Outside of the first drive, where they struggled to stop Cleveland, where first, 3rd and 11, I believe it was, Dylan Gabriel hits a mesh concept, just 2 rub routes, drags across the middle. Fannon's wide open. They get the first down. They run a reverse. They get 30 yards. They hit a play action concept to Fannon wide open for a touchdown. That was the opening drive touchdown for Cleveland on their first series after the Patriots went down and scored a field goal after struggling within the 10-yard line. They kicked a field goal. After that, the Patriots defense completely dominated the game. Judkins, who looks like the best rookie running back in the class so far, had 2.1 yards per carry before leaving the game with injury. Dylan Gabriel struggled. 4.5 yards per completion or attempt. I'm not sure what the stat is on ESPN, but probably per attempt. 2 interceptions on the day. One incredible grab by Hawkins with one hand, and another one by Spillane that returned it into field position for the Patriots to score a touchdown. A 65 passer rating. Only getting 1 sack on Gabriel in this game, but still allowing an 18 QBR, a 65 passer rating, just a bunch of short completions, a lot of it being garbage time. And one of the touchdowns basically coming off of the worst punt I've ever seen in my life. It wasn't blocked. It wasn't even a really rushed. He punted the ball 15 yards. That was one of the worst punts I've ever seen by Behringer in my life. Fannon managed to have a good game, but everyone else kind of, didn't really play well. And then defensively, Denzel Ward kept Stephon Diggs at bay, but everyone else pretty much thrived, right? Diggs only had 14 yards and a touchdown in this game. He managed to get his first touchdown as a Patriot on that little Danny Amendola Super Bowl 51 2-point conversion play. But Mac Hollins stepped up, 89 yards, 7 catches. Kayshon Boutte stepped up, right? Austin Hooper stepped up. So the other guys were able to step up when Denzel Ward was shadowing. Denzel Ward's amazing. We all get that. But, Malik Collins didn't impact the game in a way that he has all year, it feels like. The defense was kept off guard. I thought McDaniels called a really good game, especially in that third quarter where they scored 21 points. Patriots scored 21 points in the third quarter. So, just very exceptional performance by my Patriots. I'm happy with how this game went. Again, I keep saying Patriots are firmly in the contender conversation for the AFC. You talk about the coaching staff. You talk about the quarterback. You talk about the defense ascending. You talk about the run game, which is the biggest weakness, getting a bit better with every game. There's really not a lot of holes on this team. And honestly, as the trade deadline approaches, with all the salary cap they have, they should be aggressive. They should be aggressively pursuing what they deem to be their weaknesses, because the way Drake Maye is playing, there is nobody playing better at the quarterback position than Drake Maye. There's no reason New England can't be a contender right now. So they outgained Cleveland by 200 yards. They out-first down them by double. They outpossessed them by 13 minutes. They completely dominated their opponent today. And they dominated them despite being 2 for 6 in the red zone. And despite being 3 for 11 on third down. So Patriots take care of business. They beat the Browns. They beat Dylan Gabriel. Rob says, fact or fiction, Shedeur starts after the bye week. There is no indication that Shedeur is going to get on the field anytime soon for Cleveland. Should he get a chance? I think at some point he probably should get a chance. Gabriel hasn't really shown enough for me to say that they should stay with him for the entirety of the rest of the season, to not look to see what Shedeur offers. But it's looking like Cleveland is going to end up being a team that drafts a quarterback next year, regardless of what happens. It doesn't really feel like they're very high on Shedeur in that building. But I think near the end of the year, they should probably give him a game or two just to scout him, see what he has, give him a chance. And, just have that process of being like, okay, what does he look like at the NFL level? But that's up to them. I'm not worried about that. Myles Garrett, shout out to him. He's incredible. Best defensive player in the league, 5 sacks. That's really the only good thing to come out of Cleveland in this game. But yeah, convincing win by the Patriots. Okay, let's move forward. In a shocker today, the New York Jets came back and upset the Cincinnati Bengals 39-38 in what has to be one of the most embarrassing performances of the week, but also just like of the season. And the reason I say that is not because like the Joe Flacco Bengals are a juggernaut, but the very fact that Joe Flacco's Bengals scored 38 points in a game that the Bengals absolutely needed to win to keep their season alive. The fact that they lost this game when they scored 38 points is embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Like, Joe Flacco put you in position with 38 points, and you couldn't hold Justin Fields, who was supposed to be benched for this game, to under 38 points. That's flat out embarrassing. Justin Fields is so bad that Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets, has basically been saying he's the worst quarterback ever. Like, he's basically been outright saying to the media, I can't even evaluate Aaron Glenn. Justin Fields is so bad. That's basically what Woody Johnson has been telling you. And yet the Bengals defense is that much worse. He's that much worse than Joe Flacco. Sorry, not Joe Flacco, Justin Fields. So the New York Jets against the Bengals put up 25 first downs and 502 yards. Guys, the Bengals defense allowed 500 yards to the New York Jets without Garrett Wilson. Allow me to name the players that were at the skill positions for the Jets. At quarterback, Justin Fields. At running back, Breece Hall, a good player. He had a really good game. 18 carries, 133 yards, 7.4 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. Isaiah Davis, third string, fourth string NFL running back, 7 carries, 65 yards, 9.3 yards per carry. The Jets had 254 yards on the ground, an average of 6.9 yards per carry. And Breece Hall, every time I looked, was ripping off a huge gain after a huge gain after a huge gain. And they couldn't stop the run. Priority number 1 for the Bengals in this game should have been do it at all costs, stop the run. Because at wide receiver, the Jets had Tyler Johnson, who was at one time the Bucs' number 5 wide receiver. The Rams' number 5 wide receiver, was the number 1 wide receiver for the Jets today. He had 64 yards and a touchdown. Mason Taylor, a rookie tight end, who had 5 for 34 and a touchdown. Jeremy Ruckert, a mid-round tight end who hasn't done anything in his career. Some guy named Arian Smith. Some guy named Isaiah Williams. Andrew Beck, and Alan Lazard. Those were the receivers that played against Cincinnati today. No Garrett Wilson. I'll go over it again. Tyler Johnson, Mason Taylor, Isaiah Williams, Jeremy Ruckert, Arian Smith, Andrew Beck, and Alan Lazard. So for the Bengals to allow 39 points and 25 first downs and 7.2 yards per carry, that is a fireable offense. I do not know how you are that bad. It's absolutely ridiculous. For Cincinnati, on the other hand, I thought that Joe Flacco played well. He actually ran the ball a couple times for first downs. He ran for a touchdown. He had 21 for 34, 223, and 2 touchdowns, and a 100 passer rating against a mediocre Jets defense. Not a bad defense, pretty mediocre defense. Chase Brown, I thought, had a good game. He caught the ball 3 times for 32 and a touchdown. He also had 73 yards and a touchdown. He looked explosive. Samaje Perine looked the best he's looked in like 10 years. He had 94 yards on 9 carries and a touchdown. Jamar Chase had 12 catches for 91 yards on 19 targets. T. Higgins, he was kind of quiet outside of the 44-yard touchdown. Noah Fant had 41 yards, but like, for Joe Flacco and this offense to score 38 points and look so good and give you a chance at, your redemption of this season and to push your season forward, and to lose to the New York Jets, who haven't won a game, by allowing 23 points in the fourth quarter, is a fucking embarrassment. Everyone should be fired. It's an embarrassment. 39-38, the Jets win. I don't know what else to say. Like, just embarrassing. And even the Bengals had a chance at the end. Embarrassing, man. Breece Hall threw a touchdown, by the way. The Bengals defense is so bad that they let Breece Hall throw a touchdown. Throw a touchdown. Not just run. All right. There seems to be some Broncos fans in here, so let's get to that Broncos game. If you guys haven't already, Gronk, spike the like button and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on these games so far. So 44-24, Denver wins over Dallas. Dallas is now 3-4, 1-4 on the road. Denver is 6-2, 4-0 at home. Convincing win by the Broncos. Just looking, and this was my question entering the game. My question was, which would win out? The bad Denver offense or the terrible Dallas defense? And we clearly got our answer. The answer was the bad Denver offense, which has been pretty bad and inconsistent all season. They had a great fourth quarter against the Giants, and they found a way to win that game and come back. But, I mean, pretty, lack of convincing first 3 quarters. And then against the Jets, they were really terrible. So Denver had been struggling to score and move the ball with consistency. And today, I mean, what we saw on that TV today was the worst defense I've ever seen in my life. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys defense. Cincinnati, I just talked about them. Dallas and Cincinnati, I don't know which one's worse. But Denver ripped them up. Bo Nix threw 4 touchdowns. Dobbins had 111 yards. Franklin had the game of his career. Sutton had 67. Bryant had his first ever touchdown. Harvey had 2 touchdowns. The Broncos did whatever they wanted. It was embarrassing. Dallas's safeties and corners are all hurt, but it was really embarrassing. That game by Dallas was so embarrassing. And I don't fault Dak Prescott really at all. It wasn't his best game today. But you're playing one of the top defenses on the road. You need a couple stops. Like a couple. And Dallas moved the ball. They managed to move the ball in this game. It just got to the point where their defense couldn't make a single stop. It was ridiculous. So they had to go for it on every 4th down. They had to kind of push the pace. Dak was taking some risky chances downfield. Dallas still managed 24 first downs today, which was more than the Patriots had against the Browns. They had 23, I believe. So Dallas had 24 first downs. They only managed 24 points, but it didn't matter anyways because Denver was just doing whatever they wanted on offense. Dallas couldn't stop a damn nosebleed. It was embarrassing. 7.5 yards per play for Denver on offense. They were 4 for 5 in the red zone. Dallas was only 2 for 4. Dallas actually managed more time of possession. They had more plays ran. It didn't matter, though. It didn't matter. Denver's defense was just good enough to get a couple interceptions on Dak, a couple sacks on Dak in timely points. Not really allowed Javonte to have a big game or Dallas to really have great balance. Blue only averaged 3.6 yards per carry. Javonte only averaged 3.2 per carry. Pickens still had a nice game. I thought he made some nice catches, 7 for 78. Lamb was modest, 7 for 74. They held down Jake Ferguson. He did nothing in the game. Shout out to Troy Franklin. He had a big game, 2 touchdowns, 89 yards. Shout out to Harvey, 2 touchdowns, right? Bo Nix, he made the throws that were there. I thought that 1 touchdown he threw to Franklin in the pocket, in the middle of the field, like a deep in route. Nice throw where he kind of had to throw it off platform a little bit. But, I mean, most of his production was just it's kind of wide open. Just the defense is so bad. I don't know what. Guys, it's really not about Denver here from an offensive standpoint. I really truthfully believe in my heart, in my soul, Dallas's defense is just that fucking terrible. It's really that bad. I mean, I'd like to come on here and tell you that Denver was some exquisite offensive performance. Sure, they looked clean, they looked good, but Dallas's defense is just that bad. I don't know what to tell you. They're just that terrible. That's my main takeaway. They couldn't stop the run. 7.4 yards per carry for Dobbins. Harvey, 6.6 yards per carry. It just is what it is. You have to give Denver some credit for their defensive performance of holding Dak under 200 yards and holding Javonte for 3.2 yards per carry. Those are the things that I'd take away from this performance for Denver, where it's their defense did good enough against one of the elite offenses in the league to the point where their offense could take advantage of a terrible defense. And hey, I'm not here to appease you, D. White. I'm here to give you my opinion and my thoughts and what I saw. And if you've watched Dallas all year, Dallas's defense is atrocious. They're one of the worst defenses I've ever seen. Period. The only good performance they've had all year was against Washington, and they still allowed over 20 points. I thought they played well last week against Washington. But with all their injuries, they are atrocious. They are atrocious. Yeah, I brought that up, Scotty. I thought, they did a good job against Dallas's offense. I thought Dallas moved the ball pretty well. But to hold Dak to about 17 points before the garbage time, that's a good performance. But, 24 first downs is still quite a bit. But I feel like that was the biggest thing that I thought Denver did. That's the biggest credit Denver gets, is their defense got the two turnovers, they got the sacks, they got the key fourth down or red zone stops, I want to say maybe, where that is what made the difference in the game, because Denver was able to take advantage against this terrible defense. So Denver has separated themselves with this win over the average team, over the one-dimensional team. What Denver told me with this win was that they're more than just a good defense. They're a good defense that has an offense that's capable to take advantage of bad defense. If that makes sense. So, I think that and I haven't really changed my mind. I mean, I think I had them in the playoffs before the year or whatever. So they're kind of still in that same standing. I still think they're the third best team in their division. I don't think it's too far off from the Chargers, but they did lose to the Chargers. But they're clearly a playoff team. The potential of Denver will come down to, can they score points against average defenses come playoff time? And can they probably do it on the road? Because now they're 4-0 at home. That's the next question for Denver. But yeah, I think this was a good performance, and it kind of proved that they're a step above this type of Dallas team that clearly has significant flaws. Okay? Okay, thank you, Christopher, for the $2, bro. Appreciate that, man. If you guys haven't already, make sure to like the video. It helps other people find this stream. Football fans just like you and I. All right, to the next one. Let's talk about the 49ers and the Texans. That was a 26-15 final score. The Texans are now 3-4 on the season with a huge victory. And I thought they were very good in this game. I thought Houston was extremely impressive against a very well-coached San Francisco team. The 49ers, though, are getting comical with these injuries. I'm pretty sure a couple guys got hurt during the game. We saw a graphic today on the broadcast that I didn't think was even humanly possible, where the Niners have had over 2,000 games lost since 2017, which is the most in the NFL. And I was saying on the live stream, how's that even possible? 2,000 games lost is absolutely insane. So the 49ers, they're dealing with their shit. They're dealing with their injuries. But I want to focus mostly on the Texans and what went well for them. I thought that CJ Stroud played actually his best game of the year by quite a wide margin. He was 30 for 39, 318 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did throw a pick. Had a 106 passer rating and an 88 QBR. I thought Stroud actually played really well. He also ran the ball pretty well. He had 30 yards rushing. Stroud looked very poised, looked very controlled in the offense, seemed to have the answers, and I thought he was very good on third down. So this is one of those games where you would say CJ Stroud looked like CJ Stroud. He looked like the guy that we saw as a rookie. He looked like the guy that we've seen in flashes since then. Last week, he was terrible against Seattle. Now, a lot of that had to do with the offensive line and the protection. But I thought this was Stroud's best game of the season for sure. And the question coming into this game would be, what would win out? Robert Saleh's scheme, his blitzing, and the bad pass rush of the Niners, or the bad offensive line of Houston? And clearly, the Texans' offensive line and scheme was good enough to be able to get by against this very weak 49er pass rush without Bryce Huff and Nick Bosa, okay? And that's kind of the story there, where on every third down, it felt like the Texans converted. And that was the story of the game for me, for Houston, was Houston, we know, they have the best defense in the league. I say it every week. I say it ad nauseum. The Texans are the best defense in football. Right? We talked about how good Cleveland was earlier. Cleveland is not even as good as the Texans. The Texans' defense is far and away the best defense in football. They really don't have any weaknesses. Their linebackers are fast. Their front four is phenomenal. Their corners are awesome. Their safeties are physical. If the Texans score 26 points in a game, the Texans are going to win. Period. Right? Like, period, end of story. If the Texans throw for 300 yards in a game, they're going to win the game. If the Texans have Woody Marks run for 62 yards in a game, which he did today, 5.6 yards per carry, they're going to win the game. By the way, that's an impressive performance for Woody Marks because the Niners are good against the run. Even with all their injuries, the Niners are strong against the run, right? They held McCaffrey to his worst game of the year. Only 8 carries, 25 yards, and he only had 3 catches, which is a really big deal for Houston because nobody's been able to do that to McCaffrey. Shanahan's been able to scheme up stuff for McCaffrey all season long. They rattled Mac Jones a couple times, but honestly, like 193, 2 touchdowns and a pick, and an 84 passer rating is pretty much the standard game for an opponent against the Texans. The Texans don't allow anyone to do anything. They don't allow anyone to do anything. That's the thing, right? Like, the Texans defense, I don't know if they've allowed any quarterback to do shit. Like, let me see. A lot of garbage yards against the Ravens, but they only allowed 10 points. Sam Darnold looked pretty pedestrian last week, and that was a game that the offense for the Texans was atrocious. Otherwise, like, they have dominated even Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield and Matthew Stafford. Like, Baker Mayfield played well against the Texans. He had 215 yards in that game, And then Matthew Stafford, they scored 14 points against the Texans. And Matthew Stafford had 245 yards. So it's like, that's about as good as you can play against the Texans. That's pretty standard. Like, the Niners didn't run the ball at all. So it was all on their backup quarterback to make plays without their top 2 receivers. And Jawan Jennings, I just want to say, like, Jawan Jennings for the Niners continues to be, like, a detriment to the team. He takes face mask penalties. He drops passes. He throws fits on the sidelines. He's slow as fuck. Like, Jawan Jennings should be traded. If I were the 49ers, Jawan Jennings out. Like, get him out of there. Kendrick Bourne can replace him. Get Ayuk in there. Get Ricky in there. Jawan Jennings has been a detriment this year. He might be playing injured, but he's caused so much drama, like, that's so unnecessary. Like, I'd just have him straight out of the building if I were them. But that's just me. But I thought the story of the day for this game was some of the receivers for the Texans stepped up. Hutchinson, 69 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Noel, 63 yards. Woody Marks, he needs the ball more. Continues to make plays as a runner and a receiver. Braxton Berrios had multiple third down conversions, 5 for 38. Jaden Higgins had a touchdown, 4 for 34. But the story of the game was the Texans on third down. The Texans on third down. Just every single time they were converting. They were 9 for 16 on third down. 23 first downs in this game, 475 yards in this game. You're not going to beat the Texans when they're that efficient on offense. Nobody in the league, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Bills, the Patriots, doesn't matter who you go down the list. The Seahawks wouldn't have beat the Texans if they would have moved the ball like this. Nobody can beat the Texans when they put up 475 yards. So, promising sign if you're a Texans fan, but you need to be better against better defenses with actual pass rushes and not a practice squad. So, the next sign for the Texans, they're 3-4 right now. Can they still be in that dark horse wild card mix? Potentially, but I need to see them play good offense and respectable level of offense against a defense that can rush the quarterback. If they can do that, that's the next step. That's the next step. But this is a very promising sign if you're a Texans fan. This is what I wanted to see from the Texans all year. Okay? Next game. Tampa Bay, 23-3. Convincing win over the Saints. This was a big one for me, personally. I had the Bucs as a best bet, -3.5. They cover, they win. I had the Saints on Patreon, under 21.5. That was the easiest bet I've made. But the biggest thing for me here was, I've been preaching like the last couple weeks, the Bucs defense is really good. That's what I've been preaching the last couple of weeks. The Bucs defense is legit. And I think this game kind of proves it. The Saints, they're not a great offense by any means, but to only score 3 points at home where they're typically putting up about 20 points per game, they put up 20 against New England. They put up 20 against a healthier Niners defense. They put up 20 against the Cardinals defense. Like, they've been putting up about 20, 21 points at home every game. And the Bucs held them to 3. And honestly, the Bucs should have had more defensive scores. Anthony Nelson had basically a defensive score. He got all the way down to the 1-yard line on a pick on a screen from Spencer Rattler. Antoine Winfield had a punch-out fumble. Jamel Dean punched the ball out. Winfield returned it for a touchdown. They called it back because they said the whistle blew, which no whistle ever blew. That was complete bullshit. And Winfield then redeemed himself. He was so mad about that, he got another interception later in the game, and the Saints just turned the ball over a million times again. This was basically the Bears game on repeat. Actually, the Saints defense played very well in this game, and I continue to have concerns about the Bucs offensively, but the Bucs defense is legit, right? A lot of garbage time yards for the Saints. They had 17 first downs, 275 yards, only 3.9 yards per play. The Bucs only had 14 first downs. The Bucs only had 3.8 yards per play. The Bucs didn't really move the ball that well in this game. It was all the turnovers by the Saints. 4 turnovers by the Saints in this game. Multiple fumbles. Think, what's his name? Shaheed fumbled a couple times. I think Kamara nearly fumbled. Rattler threw a pick. Shuck threw a pick. Yeah, Shuck actually got some action. And the Saints attempted 51 passes for 5.2 yards per attempt and 2 interceptions and an average of a 59 passer rating. They were also sacked 5 times. They ran the ball for 3.2 yards per carry. Shaheed had 9 catches for 75 yards. Olave had 8 for 63. But a lot of them were non-circumstantial in terms of how the game flow went. I'd also say Chase Young is playing really well. If someone wants to trade for him, I feel like Chase Young, 1.5 sacks today. He actually had a really good game. I think he's playing really well. Justin Reed had half a sack. Nathan Shepard had a sack, but Demario Davis looks good too. I wonder if they would trade him. Levante David had 10 tackles. Jacob Parrish had a sack. Dennis had a sack. 2 sacks for Anthony Nelson, who had the game of his career with also an interception. Zion McCollum and Jamel Dean are one of the best cornerback combinations in the NFL right now. Antoine Winfield is phenomenal. Their defense looks really, really good, even without Hassan Reddick. Tez Johnson led the way for the Bucs, 5 for 43. Abuka was held at bay with 3 for 35. Did not look great in this game. Sean Tucker looked like the better running back for the Bucs, but he only averaged 3.5 yards per carry. Baker was under a ton of pressure. He got sacked 3 times, and it probably should have been more. The Bucs offense looks disjointed. No Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin, offensive line injuries. They just don't look great. But the Bucs defense is able to hold it down. They're able to win this game 23-3, in part, a huge part because of their defense dominating. And Todd Bowles proving his worth as a defensive head coach. Some of the blitzing concepts, he got one against Rattler where Parrish just came in scot-free, absolutely, just nobody blocked him. Just a great job by Todd Bowles. Got to give him credit there. Indianapolis destroyed the Titans in the most predictable finish of the week, 38-14. What do I have to say about this game? This was my survivor pick. The Colts, 420 yards again, 21 first downs, and some home run hitters from Jonathan Taylor. He had an 80-yard touchdown in this game, 153 total rushing yards, 12.8 yards per carry. Insane. Daniel Jones, only 8 completions through 3 touchdowns, 136 passer rating. Tennessee is atrocious. They're going to be back at number 32 in my power rankings. Michael Pittman made an insane catch over the middle at one point. It was 3 people were trying to catch the ball, and he still caught it. He had 95 yards, 8 catches, and a touchdown. Kind of been the most underrated receiver in the league this year. Michael Pittman, maybe. Alec Pierce catches a bomb every game. Warren was kind of quiet today. Downs scored a touchdown. I do like what I saw from that DK kid on Tennessee. 2 consecutive good games, if you can pick him up in fantasy. 7 catches for 93 yards. He had a good game against New England as well. Tajay Spears looked good for the Titans. 6.6 yards per carry. Looks pretty quick. I just like the way he moves. He's elusive. Had a touchdown. Cam Ward struggling, a lot of pressure. 4 sacks. He's running for his life on every play. Didn't like how that looked. But the Colts defense, they got a lot of pressure, which is a good sign. I remember a sack by Moore, the nickel corner, relatively early in the game. And then, Buckner got a sack. Some pressure up the middle on Cam Ward quite a bit. And yeah, just Colts continuing to do their thing. Humming along, proving to be an elite team, dominating bad teams at home, putting together a complete performance of offense, passing, running, defense, stopping the run, stopping the pass. I kind of expected Tennessee to maybe put up some more points in this game, given the injuries that the Colts have in the secondary. But no, they were not able to. But, it is what it is. Tennessee is really, really bad. Next, what do I want to talk about? So we've got about 20 minutes until Sunday Night Football, so still a good amount of time. We want to talk about the Bills and the Ravens games. I haven't talked about the Eagles yet, so let's go with the Eagles next. Yabba dabba, what's up, bro? We talked about the Broncos a little bit earlier. The Eagles defeat the Giants in a bit of a revenge spot, 38-20 at home. Eagles are now 6-2 and 3-1 at home. The Giants put up 20 in a loss, 2-6. They're 0-5 on the road. Cam Skattebo gets hurt. That was a big headline in this game. Saquon also a little bit of a pulled hammy, but it was Saquon's best game of the season. He hit a early first drive of the game, second down, I believe. 65-yard touchdown, 14 carries, 150 yards, 10.7 yards per carry. He also scored a receiving touchdown, wide open on a swing, like wheel route, wide open. Tank Bigsby also had 104 yards on the ground. He looked really good in this game as the backup. And I do wonder why they traded for him, and then for some reason they were still putting A.J. Dillon ahead of him in the rotation. There's no reason. Tank Bigsby is a lot more explosive. He's a much better pure rusher than A.J. Dillon. He's so much more explosive. He's actually kind of like a Saquon light in a lot of ways. Like, he is a home run hitting kind of power / speed back. So I think they should definitely complement Barkley more often with Tank Bigsby. I think that's a good little 1-2. Jalen Hurts was highly efficient. 15 for 20, 179, 4 touchdowns through the air, 141 passer rating. There was one suspect play in this game where they ran a tush push on 4th and 1, I think, and Hurts reached the ball across with his arm, and somebody punched it out. It might have been Brian Burns. I'm not 100% sure, but somebody punched the ball out on 4th and 1. And they said that the refs called the play dead. It should have been a fumble. Like, it should have been a fumble 100%. I don't know why they would call the play dead in that scenario, because Jalen Hurts had not been down. He was on top of like 3 people's bodies, and they punched the ball out. So that was a little bit suspect, in my opinion. But Hurts had 4 touchdowns. It wouldn't have really mattered, I don't think. Devontae Smith had a really good game. Again, 6 catches for 84 yards and 9 targets. Dotson caught a deep ball down the left sideline for a late touchdown. 1 catch, 40 yards and a touchdown. Dallas Goedert had two touchdowns. One on an RPO concept. The classic Eagles, where they fake the handoff and then they slip Goddard down the field and Hurts just hits him wide open. That was one of them. Then the other one was like a double slant to the left side, and Goddard just beat his guy inside, caught a touchdown. This looked like more of the game that I thought would happen on Thursday night, right? Giants were weak against the run. Eagles finally took advantage of that. Jalen Hurts was highly efficient against a secondary that's depleted. No Javon Holland, no Paulson Adebo, no A.J. Brown, though. And the Eagles still were able to throw the ball effectively and efficiently, which is good. Thumbs up for me. And this is more of the Eagles team that we would have expected before the year, right? And I think the biggest thing for the Eagles was they got a ton of pressure in this game. They sacked Jackson Dart 5 times. And I kind of felt like Jackson Dart held the ball way too long a lot of the time. I think this was Jackson Dart's worst game. Like, just from watching him. Maybe the Saints game. But it felt like he held the ball a lot. It felt like he was trying to scramble and like make a play when it wasn't really there. He's trying to kind of like run to the right and throw across his body, and like there wasn't a lot of inside structure offense for the Giants in this game. It felt like it was very forced. But yeah, the Eagles, they were able to dictate the line of scrimmage, and that's what the Eagles are always been about in this Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts era, right? It's about running the ball, and it's about getting to the quarterback and winning the line of scrimmage. And also, I thought the Eagles' secondary pretty much smothered the Giants, which was not the story on the Thursday night game. So this was basically the inverse of the Thursday night football game. The Giants won the line of scrimmage in that game. The Giants won the perimeter in that game. In this game, the Eagles did that, right? The Eagles created explosives down the field. They took that from the Vikings game, and it followed through in this game. That's a big positive sign. So the Eagles looking a lot more like the Eagles. That's a good thing. Because the Eagles we've seen in these games, you know, in previous weeks, they look like a complete fraud, a complete pretender, like a team that I would never think could go to a Super Bowl again. Like, they look like absolute garbage, right? Jalen Hurts looked like garbage. Run game absolutely inept. Pass rush atrocious. Like, so the next step for the Eagles is, how do they look against a better team, you know, a good team? Now that they've redeemed themselves against the Giants, I have never thought high of the Giants, even with this whole Jackson Dart hype. And for Jackson Dart, you know, you're going to have games like this. As a rookie, I wouldn't get panicked if I were a Giants fan. It's not like he has a lot out there to work with. Scadaboo getting hurt really hurt the team's morale. Offensive line is a bit suspect. Wide receiving play a little bit suspect. So, you know, good win by the Eagles. Good win by the Eagles. Very, you know, I think their defense looked like their defense. Their offense looked how their offense is supposed to look. And Jalen Hurts has had 2 good games in a row, right? Not being asked to throw with volume, only 20 attempts, but very efficient and very explosive, which is exactly what we want to see from the Eagles. Run the ball, explosive passes, protect the quarterback, get to the quarterback. Hurts, though, still holds the ball sometimes too long. Took 4 sacks again. I don't know why he does that, but that's just the style of play that which he plays. It just is what it is. But yeah, Eagles finally outgained an opponent 427 to 246, 7.5 yards per play. I can finally let go of that stat now. Thank God. Next, the Miami Dolphins, the Atlanta Falcons. I haven't talked about this yet. I haven't been able to watch this, and I didn't really see too much of this game. So I kind of maybe want to talk about this on Tuesday, but this is a fireable performance by the Falcons. I don't need to have seen the game to tell you that this is an embarrassing effort by the Atlanta Falcons. Sure, you don't have your quarterback, Michael Penix. Sure, you don't have your number 1 receiver, Drake London. But the Miami Dolphins are a team falling apart. They're 2-6 after this win. They were 1-6 entering the game, and they were 0-4 on the road, the Miami Dolphins. They're a team where their quarterback is claiming he can't see, a quarterback claiming they have no leaders in their locker room, a coach claiming he just wants to see another day, a coach basically on the hot seat, a quarterback that probably will never start for the team after this year, and a Miami Dolphins team that is completely imploding. And they go out there to Atlanta and they beat the utter shit out of the Atlanta Falcons 34-10. They beat them by 24 points. Tua has 4 touchdowns and throws 6 incompletions against what was the number 1 pass defense in football in yards allowed before this game. Now, they only allowed 205 yards, but they allowed 4 touchdowns and a 138 passer rating. Kirk Cousins is completely washed. 21 for 31, 173 yards, a 35 QBR. The Atlanta Falcons, that prides itself on running the ball, the best back in the league, 9 carries, 25 yards, 2.8 yards per carry for Bijan, could not run the ball. Jalen Waddle, the only weapon on the Dolphins that's worth a damn, had 99 yards and a touchdown. Couldn't stop him. Malik Washington and A-Shane also had touchdowns. The two other guys that you would think would score a touchdown for Miami, Atlanta allowed them to score a touchdown. Devon A-Shane, he didn't have a too great of a game on the ground, 3.7 yards per carry, but 67 yards kept them afloat. Ollie Gordon did have a strong game, getting back involved in the offense, 4.6 yards per carry, 46 yards. Miami, Jordan Brooks, man, if a team needs a linebacker, I've been touting and telling you guys about Jordan Brooks. I had Jordan Brooks in my top 25 linebackers, top 20 maybe, linebackers entering the year, and I don't think a lot of other people did. Jordan Brooks is really good. If there is a player that you should trade for on Miami, it's Jordan Brooks on defense. Trade for Jordan Brooks. I'm just going to throw that out there. But embarrassing all-around effort. Raheem Morris, still one of the worst coaches in football, an absolute jabroni. Zach Robinson, a completely inept game against maybe the worst defense in the league. Guys, they scored 12 points. I'm giving them too much credit. They scored 10 points against the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins entering this game were 32nd in yards per drive allowed and 31st in points per drive allowed and 32nd in time of possession allowed. Are you kidding me? So I need to go back and watch the entirety, the play-by-play, but I don't need to do that to tell you how embarrassing that is. Atlanta is now 3-4, and with this loss, this is the kind of loss at home, nonetheless, where they were looking really like a really good team, right? At home, embarrassed. This is the loss that makes you miss the playoffs. 100%. You can't lose this game. You can't. Okay? Let's finish it off with the two headliners, the Ravens and the Bills. Are they back? The two teams in the AFC that people thought, maybe these are the teams that can take over for the Chiefs before the year. Now, the Ravens are now 2-5, but a lot of people were saying, Lamar's out again, all the shenanigans, all the drama entering this game with Lamar Jackson and the complete jabroni-filled John Harbaugh practice reports. He's full participant. He was actually on the scout team. What type of garbage is that? Costing people bets, costing people fantasy points, all this stuff, bro. But the Ravens come out. They win at home convincingly over a rising Chicago team, 30-16. And for all the jabronis in my comment section saying, Mitch, you never picked the Bears. It's the 8th week in a row you haven't picked the Bears. You haven't picked the Bears all year. I didn't pick the Bears for a damn reason, because they're overrated. They're overrated. Their defense is garbage. Their quarterback is trash. The Bears are overrated. I told you. I didn't even need to change my pick. I didn't even utter one time that I was going to change my pick, because I knew the Bears are overrated. I told all you jabronis. So they come back down to earth. 30-16. The Ravens win. Tyler Snoop Huntley has the game of the year. 186 yards, 1 touchdown, a 116 passer rating, 8 carries for 53 yards. A very good day for Snoop Huntley, stepping up and taking over for Lamar Jackson and looking really good in this game. I actually thought he looked really good in this game. I thought every time I turned on the game, he was making a big scramble for a first down. He was making a big throw for a first down. He was actually really good in this game. You got to give the guy credit, who wasn't even on the roster before the season. He was just signed not that long ago. Derrick Henry, the engine of the offense, despite the inefficiency, this is what King Henry can do for you. 2 touchdowns on the ground. Zay Flowers continuing to be, just a really good receiver, 7 for 63 and 9 targets. When your backup quarterback is in, you need your top receivers to step up and make plays, and Zay Flowers did that. Bateman had some explosives down the field. 2 for 51, including a 36-yarder. Mark Andrews, 3 for 34. And also, the defense, I think, was really the story for the Ravens. The defense that shined against the Rams before the bye week. Is this now the Ravens defense that's made some adjustments? I made a lot of it on the pick show, right? They brought in Gilman from the Chargers. That shifts Kyle Hamilton to nickel. That shifts Marlon Humphrey outside. Marlon Humphrey played a really good game here, I thought. Roquan Smith led the way with 12 tackles. Teddy Buchanan had 2 tackles for loss. Nate Wiggins had a pick in this game. What else? Gilman was heavily involved as well. And then they only had 1 sack. Mike Green was the only one to get a sack. But I thought that Chicago struggled more than most the last couple of weeks to really move the ball. 19 first downs and 372 yards. They were also 1 for 3 in the red zone. They took 11 penalties for 79 yards. This was a Chicago offense that had been running the ball really well. Caleb had been playing efficient ball. They've been scoring in the red zone, right? Caleb had 0 touchdowns. He did have 285 yards, but he threw a pick and he had a 77 passer rating. Still had those 13 incompletions. And I think the biggest thing is the Ravens, who have been really bad against the run all year, DeAndre Swift only had 4.1 yards per carry. Rome Odunze had another good game, 114 yards, 7 catches, and 4 catches for 73 yards by DJ Moore. But I think this is big news for the Ravens. The Bengals lose to the Jets. The Ravens are still in it. This is a game they needed to have. They didn't have their guy at quarterback Lamar Jackson, and they still win. They still cover the 6.5 spread, which ended up being like 2 by kickoff. The Ravens covered the spread, won the game, won by 14 with no Lamar Jackson at home. Defense stepped it up, made some timely plays, and Snoop Huntley made some plays. And to finish it off, Sunday Night Football is about to get underway in a few minutes. The Buffalo Bills, 40-9. And before I get to Buffalo, just a last note on the Ravens. The Ravens have now opened the door for their chance to make the playoffs, guys. Because if you look at the Ravens' schedule, just going to throw this out there, right? They next week play a short week on Thursday against Miami. Does Lamar play that game? Miami, after an impressive win against Atlanta, they're at home, the Dolphins. That's a huge game for the Ravens. The Ravens have to win that one. But they're playing a really suspect schedule. The Dolphins, the Vikings with Carson Wentz, the Browns, the Jets, the Bengals, and then the Steelers at home. This is the beginning of a potential run here for the Ravens. They have saved their season with a win. If you go to 1-6, you're probably not making the playoffs no matter how many games you win at the end of the year. Right? Now they've got a chance. 40-9, Buffalo is back over Carolina. Carolina now 4-4. This is their first loss at home, and it was decisive. Buffalo 5-2, 2-1 on the road. 40-9. Bills are back to scoring their 30-plus points. They had 23 first downs, 60 plays ran. They averaged 6.8 yards per play. They ran for 245 yards in this game. And their defense, I thought, made some timely stops, some timely turnovers. So they picked off Andy Dalton, AJ Epinesa on a screen. Great interception, returned it into the red zone. Ed Oliver on the first drive of the game, quick 3-and-out, sack early in the game. And this was the best the Bills defense has played all year. Andy Dalton does look a little washed. I'm not going to lie about that. But Carolina's offense had looked good the previous few weeks, right? To hold 9 points at home, Carolina, right? Carolina had been on a roll, guys. Like, Carolina, they beat the Jets by 7 on the road. They beat the Dolphins, and they scored 27 in that game. They beat the Cowboys. They scored 30 in that game. So 3 consecutive wins for the Panthers, and this is a 31-point win by Buffalo in Carolina. And yeah, their defense actually for Buffalo, like even from like a stats perspective, right? 4 for 11 on third down was Carolina. 19 first downs, which is decent but not great. Only 244 total yards for the Panthers. They held their rushing attack to a modest game. Carolina has a really good rushing attack. Dowdle did have some good runs, but only 54 yards. Hubbard only 34 yards, 2.8 yards per carry for Hubbard. McMillan did have a good game, 7 for 99, but other than that, Carolina didn't do anything. I will say Josh Allen a couple times on third down, a couple sacks. Feels like teams can blitz them still. They do need to get a number one receiver on the outside. Khalil Shakir had a long 54-yard touchdown on a yak play. He had 6 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown. He had a couple key conversions early in the game. Keon Coleman, 3 for 30. Kincaid, 1 for 23. I thought, they need to get somebody going there. I still feel like their passing game needs to prove more with Josh Allen. Kind of weird to say, but that passing game needs to prove more to me, especially next week. They have a huge game against the Chiefs. But James Cook was the star. He cooked Carolina, 19 for 216, 11.4 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. Absolute beast, explosive, still not involved as a receiver. Didn't catch a single pass. I don't know what's going on there. Why are we not getting James Cook the ball as a receiver? Why are we not getting Dalton Kincaid the ball as a receiver? But this is the Bills at their best. Win the line of scrimmage, run the football, right? Strong Sean McDermott defense, timely turnovers, big red zone stops. That's what the Bills do. That's what the Bills do best. They also had 7 sacks. Just throwing that out there. The Bills had 7 sacks in this game, which is another huge deal because the Bills haven't really been able to dominate the line of scrimmage. They haven't really been able to rush the quarterback. That's a big thing. 7 sacks, right? That's a big deal. So 40-9 Buffalo wins over the Carolina Panthers in an impressive bounce back post-bye victory. And Josh Allen doesn't have to do a ton to get it done. Still had some nice plays, but only 163 passing yards. So James Cook cooked in Carolina. Those are my thoughts on the October 26th, Week 8 Sunday action. Enjoy Sunday Night Football. I'll be recapping the game later on tonight, so make sure to tune in later tonight. I'll give you my recap, my thoughts on the game. Thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed this recap. It's Mitch. Gronk spike the like button. Subscribe. Deuces.